we had Mayank speaking that attachment is there, and with attachment there is this realization that because of the attachment I tend to think that somebody can give me something, and that leads to suffering. And even if I realize that somebody is the reason for my suffering, why do I still tend to attach? And Bhattacharya ji added saying that with time period, for example, I am of this age, I think 10 years back was a big problem for me, but now that problem doesn't remain. Then, so I added into this that saying that today, 10 years back, a problem was there, now it is a source of pleasure for me. So it is a time period, and with change of time and place, things change. And that also initiated, we also had a discussion on is wisdom to do with age? Because does experience give us understanding? So these two things were discussed upon. But I think Mayamji's question still remains unanswered, because I was saying, why does it really then happen, even if I realize?
It happens with almost everybody, doesn't it? That we suppose that we know the anatomy of our problem. We claim that we understand why there is problem, and yet we are unable to get rid of it. It remains. Why does it still remain? Why does it still remain? I have not met anybody who has claimed such deep ignorance so as to say that he has no idea of why he is suffering. Wherever there is suffering, there is at least an idea as well about the reason, the source of the suffering. Yet the suffering is not beaten. It remains undefeated. Why does that happen? I have met people who are suffering because they say that they are emotionally very dry, very invulnerable. They say we see people laughing, crying, jumping, weeping, being moved, being reduced, experiencing all the pleasure and pain. But we have become such emotional deserts that we do not experience any ups and downs. So what you are saying is a defense against suffering itself becomes suffering in several cases. Question is not about whether the mind is emotional or not. If the mind is not emotional, it will be something else. The mind is always full of something, composed of something. The question is, when it encounters a problem and also claims to know the reason behind the problem, why is it still not able to drop the problem? Alright, let us look at a situation. It's a very simplified version of a situation. Let's look at it. So I'm full of anger against somebody. I'm full of prejudice against somebody. Right? I claim that all my problems are caused by that person, directly, indirectly. I have this in my mind that the fellow is deeply interested in my downfall, in seeing me suffer, and he keeps conspiring against me. Now this is the state of mind. In this state of mind, there is supposedly a problem. The problem is that I am suffering. And there is the assumed reason of the problem. The reason is that there is somebody who is causing all those problems. Right? Now, with the mind remaining as it is, with the mind assuming that there is the problem and that particular fellow is the reason of the problem, is it possible to drop the cause of the problem? Come closer to this. Who is thinking that he knows the cause of the problem? And what is the state of this mind? What is the state of this mind? It is in a problem precisely because it does not know the problem. The mind is in a problem precisely because it understands nothing. But the problem statement itself says, I understand. Please understand this. Had there been any understanding, would the problem have been there in the first place? But what does the problem say? What is the name of the problem? What is the description of the problem? The description of the problem is, I know. What is the description of the problem? I know. I know itself is the problem. Had there been any real knowing, would the problem have been there in the first place? The mistake that we often commit is that with the same mind that is beset with problem, we try to find the solution. How is the solution going to come from the same mind, at the same level, on the same plane, at which the problem came? In fact, it is the same working of the mind which is sometimes labeled as the problem and sometimes labeled as a prospective solution. It is nothing but the functioning of the mind. It is the same prejudice of the mind that is sometimes called as one's suffering and sometimes called as others' conspiracy. Are we getting it? The first thing that a mind surrounded with problems must humbly understand is that it cannot remain what it is and yet come to a solution. But as I said right in the beginning, whenever there is a problem, there is also some assumption regarding its possible solution. Nobody comes and says, here is a problem, and I have no idea at all about its origin and its solution. That doesn't happen, right? Everybody is an expert on problems. In fact, you would meet people who would say that, see, it is my problem, I know best about it. Have you not met such cases? They would say, boss, it is my personal problem. I am the one who would know the most about it. The fact is totally opposite. Because it is your problem, so you are the one who will not know anything about it. Had you known anything about it, from where would the problem have come? But we feel very belittled, very small if we are told that you do not know anything about it. We feel like an idiot. We feel as if somebody is telling us that we do not know anything about our own house. It is like being declared the total moron who does not know what is there in his head. Yes, of course, we do not know what is there in our head. That is exactly the definition of the problem. Not to know what is there, and yet assume that you know something is there. The world would have been a very simple place had things been what they appear. When you do not know, had it also appeared as not knowing, things would have been wonderful. But when we do not know, it appears as a lot of knowledge. Haziness appears as clarity. Prejudices appear as conclusions. Subjectivity appears as facts. That is why it often happens that when you go to a doctor, the doctor simply doesn't even hear you out. Happens with some doctors. You go to them, they would ask you the basic questions, and beyond that, if you start ranting about your own self-diagnosis, they are not interested. Sometimes they are even contemptuous. And you feel bad. You say, it is my body and I am trying to tell him something about my condition. He doesn't even want to listen. You want to tell him that, when I wake up, then I am feeling a little bit of nausea. And in the afternoons when I see the color green, that is when there is something happening in the liver. So, and when I see crimson, then the kidneys start getting inflamed, and you have come up with all kinds of your own mental models regarding your situation. And you know, sir, in spite of being the most intelligent person in the world, yet I am unable to solve this physical problem. I am completely a doctor, but for the degree. Except for holding an MBBS degree, I am totally a doctor. But you see, doctor, yet my body is suffering. And this is so strange. In spite of being a doctor, yet I am suffering. Now look at your problem statement. Not only do you not know your body, you also do not know your mind. The one who encounters suffering must first of all humbly surrender to the fact that he does not know even suffering. There is nothing substantial about suffering. Suffering is the name of not being in touch with the truth. So the suffering mind must avoid any presumptions about itself or the world. Your system has gone bonkers. That is called suffering. Your computer has gone mad. Now, would you use the same computer to diagnose itself? Yes? Yes? But it feels so bad, right? You say, I might be suffering, yet I am an intelligent sufferer. I might be tipping and stumbling at every step. Yet I can totally see what lies in the front. And you better listen to me about my real problem. That is why it has been greatly emphasized that one must go close to the suffering. One must go close to the sufferer. We try to maintain a respectful distance from the sufferer. Whereas one must go very, very close to it. One has to see it for what it is. Not have an idea about it. Not have some concept about it. Not assume that one knows the suffering, the sufferer, the whole make up the whole layout, the whole anatomy of suffering. Not assume that. One has to go close to the sufferer. And going close will be possible only if one first admits that one does not know. These two must come together. One, I do not know. Second, it is possible to know. Because it is possible to know, so let me boldly go close. Going close will not be possible if I have models. And it is so easy to have models. The world, the problem, the force of the problem, the strength of my emotional defenses. All these are just phrases. What do we mean by emotional defenses? Where does that struggle really exist? Where a situation is attacking you and your emotional armor is protecting you. Where does it really exist except in the imagination? Is it really even happening? It is highly uncomfortable to look at it, right? And it is so very comfortable to remain with the model and even twist the facts so that they comply with the model. And it is uncomfortable to really ask, is any of this that we assume to be happening really been happening? Is it really like this? So, instead of postulating a solution about the problem, first of all, let us drop the confidence that we know the problem and innocently, cleanly go close to the problem. Forget about the solution, that I know the solution. We do not even know the problem. So we'll stop thinking about the solution. We'll instead just honestly look at the problem. Maybe that suffices. Who knows?
But one thing, it is up to this, it is absolutely fine, but going near to the problem with the same mind.
No, the mind does not go near to anything.
I mean, no, how to go near the problem? It is understood that I don't know, I surrender.
What takes you away from the problem? What takes you away from the problem? What takes you away from anything? Let's find out. What will take you away from this room right now? Even as we are sitting here, some of us, even at this moment, might be away from this room. What takes us away from this room?
Thoughts.
So, it is not about asking how to be in the room, because you are already there. The question is about finding out how does one go away? How does that strange thing happen? One goes away because one imagines. One goes away because one is lost in thoughts and assumptions. So you go away from the problem when you are assuming a lot about the problem. So how does one come close to the problem then? How does one close to the problem?
Drop all imagination.
By just not giving support to one's assumptions. The assumptions appear very powerful. The assumptions appear as sacred as the truth. One feels like saying, what is the point in investigating it? I know this is the fact. Does it not happen? I know she loves me. How can I investigate this? And is investigation not going to be disrespectful? I know I'm an honest man. What is the point in investigating? I know I understand. What is there to find out? I know I have been cheated. Now that takes you away from the problem. I know he is such a virtuous man. I know how my father feels for me. I know I did my best. And you know, your entire personality, your self-concept lives on these things. This is what you call as your pride, as your backbone, as the very foundation of your being. That is what you call all these things, right? To investigate them requires real courage. Because you are now running the risk of losing everything. You are running the risk of losing your self-definition, your self-concept. I know my religion is the best. And you are a very religious man. Your life is built around religion. Now to really go close to what religion is, look at the fact of things, is to risk your life. Risk your own being, which was of course nothing but an image. But you are risking it, nevertheless. Look at people talking. Look at the sureness with which they talk to each other. Look at the confidence with which they back, support, and enunciate certain facts. So-called facts. What if those facts were to crumble? How would those people look then? How would their faces look then? Yes? Somebody is addressing a large crowd, saying that he is talking to them about a religious war. And the face of the speaker is shining with moral authority. There is so much confidence, sureness, that he is even exhorting others to rise. Rise for the cause of defending our holy religion. What would happen to this person were he to know that he knows no religion? How would his face look? Do you see how difficult then it becomes to go close to things as they are? And how high are your stakes in sticking to your assumptions? You develop such high stakes in the fancy world, in the imaginary world that you create, that now you cannot leave it. All my life I have imagined that my husband loves me, and out of this great love, 2 kids have been born. Now those kids are 10 and 15 years old. It becomes extremely difficult for you to now investigate that love. Because if it is known that it was not love, then what will you know about those kids? You will learn that those kids are not at all products of love. They have just come from a loveless physical contact. And what will you do with them now? What happens to your relationship with them now? And they are your life now. Your life is full of your husband, your kids, and so many other relatives who are also related to the husband and the kids. It becomes impossible, almost impossible, to test your assumptions now, because your life is now standing on those assumptions. You cannot now falsify those assumptions. Do you see how the problem sustains itself? Do you see how it is so very difficult to go close to the problem? Especially after you have given it sustenance for a long, long time. It has become your life. It has become your self-concept. It has become your entire world. Now, how to destroy your world? The world may be false, but it is my world. If I drop it, I am left with nothing else. How to drop it? Hence, it is the easiest to investigate when you have not endured the problem with too many stakes. When the problem is still fresh. When the mind is still young. As you keep committing more of yourself, more resources to the problem, the more difficult it will be for you to impartially, factfully look at the problem. You will suffer, and you will have just stories about your suffering. And those stories will have nothing that can abate the suffering. those stories will just further and deepen the suffering. That is why the doctor doesn't listen to you. There's nothing in your stories. Your stories are the problem.